All right, miigwech, miigwech. As you know, we came up with this idea. It was called Recipe for Success. But then we had also this one presentation that we were working on that we called Anishinaabe Idols. And it's about mentoring, but each mentor that we're going to present had a way to speak and send their message out. So I'm going to go through this presentation just to show you that each one of these persons had to speak to their people in order to send that message out. And as an individual, you can be that person yourself if you would like to be. So, as you know, and you have in your PowerPoint, and each one has everything, so I won't read it word for word. And I'll just sort of just kind of browse through it because we only have, 25 minutes, I think. Okay, as you know, the term Aboriginal or Native or Indigenous is just a general term, and it's a collective term for First Nation, Métis, and Inuit, and that's what these terms are used, and it can be changed using interchangeably. And throughout history, we had people that go back 150, 200 years that represented us, and they all had a voice, and that voice was always could have been used as a elevator speech, or they used a recipe card. This is what we're calling it today, but back then they didn't have those terms, and they had these voices. Take Big Bear. He on your part. I don't know if you guys can read it, but if next presentation. So, like, he was a man from Northern. He's a Northern Cree from Saskatchewan, who was hung for treason because he fought for his people, because he fought for treaty rights and for hunting of buffalo. And then we have Tecumseh, who fought for Canada, and he fought on the side of Canada, you know, when they had the War of 1812. And then we have the Métis, and we have Louis Riel, and I also included Harry Daniels. Harry Daniels was a man that spoke for Aboriginal rights in Canada because he's the one who included the Métis within the Constitution. And Riel was a man that even though he was just 1/8 Aboriginal, but he truly believed he was an Aboriginal that had these rights, and he spoke up for, he made these speeches, and he had a lot of followers. And next page over, we have our leaders. In Canada, we have Jeanette Corbier, and she's the one who brought Bill C-31, Aboriginal women that have their treaty rights back. Then we have our new chief, Sean Natalie, who's from BC, and he's been around. He's like an activist for his people, so he had a speech to help people. Next one over. And there's more details in there. I'm just going through briefly what each person has to say. And then I also included Sean Natalie with, am I missing a page? No. Okay. I also included this thing with Potlatch. It was a practice where people shared. They shared everything. It was like a part of their history. And it's not only that kind of happening didn't happen not only in BC. It happened with the Hurons. It happened with Six Nations. And you know, it's Anishinaabe have a way of sharing. They always shared everything. And then I taught about educators. So I included Ruby Slipperjack. She's a professor at Lakehead University, and she just back in 2003 she finally received her PhD, but it took her years, and now she's sending her wisdom, and that's a message that Anishinaabe can be painters, writers, and educators. And I included Shindawak beside her, because Shindawak belongs in our Robinson Superior area. He was the one who said that you teach my people teach you, and he had a message. Next one. Then next one over, I included leaders. Leaders come in all different forms, and each leader has a message. Take Mandela, who was in prison for years because he fought for the freedom of his people. And he had a way of speaking to people where he always say, he always put his hands out, and that was a message. Then we have here Commander, who just passed away this summer, and he was a spiritual leader who practiced his culture, and he was also, as you can see in his on his bio here, I'd like to just read exactly what William Commander had done. He was the wampum keeper, and he was a hereditary chief, a Algonquin leader, a spiritual leader, a wampum keeper. He kept numerous belts. The 3 belts were the 7 prophecies, fire prophecies, the Jade Treaty, cross belt, and the 3-figure welcoming and agreement wampum belt. In 1990, along with the Dalai Lama, he gave the blessing to the human rights in Ottawa, and then also he was part of the presentation in 1998 where they presented an eagle feather to Nelson Mandela. So this is a man who had a voice or how he presented himself to people, that we should be proud of who we are and how he presents himself. So, and then we have, I included Michelle John, and she's from Haiti, and she was here as a refugee. But this woman, after researching her, she spoke numerous languages, and with these languages, she also gave a message. Next one over, and also included this one young person, Kenny Potlatch, who's walking across Canada, and he's working against anti-gangs, anti-drugs, and he started out in Nova Scotia, and he was just, I think it was like a month ago that he passed through Thunder Bay, but he's on his way to BC, where he's promoting a healthy lifestyle, and these are youths that are trying to bring voice. Oh, here, this one here I had to put in. We also have our comedians. But the reason why I included Don, how he sends his message is he uses he's a comedian. That's how he relays his message, and he does this for healing, like so, because he's if you look at his bio here, in 1980. Oh, I should put 1885. It's supposed to be 1995. I just noticed it myself. Typo. But yeah. At age 21, he was an alcoholic, and he quit drinking, and that was his road to recovery. And since then, he started using that way of healing people and sending his message. And this has been like 20 years now he's been sending this message of that Anishinaabe should be proud of who we are, and this is how he sends his message. So read it, and his slogan, laughter is is a good medicine, and he makes fun of us. Every little thing we do, he finds a way to send that message. But well, if you see him, if you're in Thunder Bay, if you're in Anishinaabe, you know what he says. And next one over, this is what do these people have in common? It's a question I like to ask everybody in the crowd. What do you think they have in common? They're all sending a message. It was through history, it's through education, it's through comedy, it's serious, there's a message, and every one of us have a message. We all have this recipe card. It's a recipe card where when you meet someone, it only takes 30 seconds to a minute or 2 minutes to send that message, even through employment, through business, and even through, just say we're in the hallway and you want to get a job. You have to have that 30 seconds or that 2 minutes to tell who you are, what you are, and how you want to send a message. And this is ways to reach people. And they all speak from the heart. That's the thing, is you got to be genuine, because people know when you're a fake or if you're a phony. And then another thing what each one has, they have a purpose. And the people here have a purpose. You may be an employee or employer, but each one of us have a purpose, how to relate, how we are, what we feel. And they all have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere. You might be starting from the bottom, or you could be up there and you still can send that message, but we all have different levels of sending messages. And this is why we call, you have to have a recipe card. And Brenda's gonna take over. And then we have, in your packages, we sent you these little recipe cards.
Well, let's talk about your recipe for success. And I want to thank Linda for putting this workshop together, because I think it's really important to look at those who have achieved success through a variety of ways. And I also wanted to include the information that Linda provided, because I think we can take a lot away from looking at people who I would consider mentors, people that we look up to. And it doesn't have to be the ones on the screen. It can be a parent, it can be an elder, it can be a teacher, it can be a friend. And I think it's really important to look at the traits of some of these people, or some of the friends, family that I've mentioned, and say, what is it about them that I want to be like? What is it about them? And you may already have that trait. That's part of your recipe card. And one of the reasons I thought of using a recipe card, whether you're young, mature, whether you're a woman or a man, everybody has seen some kind of recipe, right? Some kind of recipe. And I thought, if we tried to look at what things you have, what things you can talk to an employer about, if you look at it like ingredients in a recipe, maybe it's easier to identify what your ingredients are, right? And if you use it like a recipe card, when I meet you, and Linda touched on sort of like an elevator speech, right? And the reason we call it an elevator speech, if you haven't heard that term before, is you meet me in an elevator. Okay? And I'm here for a career fair. And I have 50 jobs. And we're going up to maybe the 15th floor of the building. You have probably 30 seconds to 45 seconds to tell me about yourself. Now, I know before I started practicing stuff like this, I was like yabba, 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 getting nothing important across to that person. Because again, if you're thinking of employment, the job market's competitive. So what I thought again, much like our discussion this morning, if you were at the presentation we did earlier, it's really trying to fine-tune what things you bring to an employer. What do you want an employer to know you and about you in the first 30 seconds? Now, I just want to go back to Emily's question about being self-employed. If you have a passion for the business you want to start, and when I say passion, it's got to come from here. Oh, I think I want to do this because I know I can make lots of money. If it isn't in here, if it's not a passion, you may struggle with your business. Emily, we have a number of programs at PARO that work with women, specifically women-centered organization. But one of our programs that I'd like to share with you is our Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges. And when I talk about programs, and this isn't a pitch for PARO, but I just want to share with Emily what's available. We have a project, we have opportunity where both men and women can come to the center and start their business with us. We can help them with their business plan. We can help them apply for funding or grants. We don't do it for you. We support you and provide resources for you. And if you don't know how to use a computer, we might even type it for you. Breaking barriers and building bridges, and I only use this as an example, is a project where persons who are differently abled, so persons with disabilities, can come in and start their business. So, to your question, Emily, well, what does that have to do with being educated? Well, when a person is differently abled, they may not have a good education, or they may have a PhD, and we do have a client in the program who's got his PhD, but he has barriers. Anybody can do a business plan. It just takes a lot of work. It takes learning. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not something you can do overnight. You need to understand about what you want to do. If it's selling a product or a service, you need to start looking at how much you want to charge for it. We take you through that step by step, as do a number of other organizations. Again, it's not just PARO that does it, but I can speak for how we do it. And again, it's women-centered, it's grassroots, it's helping you with the fundamentals. And our business plans aren't 34 pages long, because if you go on Google and you Google search business plan templates, you're going to come up with a university thesis. The ones I've looked at recently are 34 pages long. We suggest ours are no more than 13. Ours are tried and true, and we have been successful. This is pitching. I'm stopping now. Okay, well, I think it's important. $300,000 worth of funding has been given to women who have started their business plans and done their businesses through PARO. Is it because of us? No. It's because they had a solid business idea, they had a passion, they had a solid business plan, they filled in the application, they put it through, and it met the criteria of the funder for no other reason. Okay, so we digress because that has nothing to do with Recipe for Success, but in some ways it does. In some ways it does, because it talks about passion, it talks about commitment, it talks about drive, it talks about what you want to see as your goal. It's also recognizing what strengths you bring to the table and what opportunities there are for you to develop those. So what things would you want to see go into your recipe? What ingredients? What do you want to tell an employer? I'm outgoing, right? There's all sorts of things for job search strategies and trying to get to the interview. Sometimes, like you're wanting to do, I'm going to create my own job. To heck with the rest of you, I'm creating my own job. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, there are elements of running a business that might be challenging to some people. If you're not really good at keeping books, you know, money in, money out, paying for this, paying for that, you might want to hire a bookkeeper. Not every person's good at doing books. So there might be parts of the business, and it has nothing to do with education, it's whether you're good at it or not. Does this help if you think about, and I hate to use the word networking. Networking is a really uncomfortable term. I'm even uncomfortable with it. I talk about building relationships, meeting new people, talking to people rather than networking. Because networking is like, okay, I have to go and talk to you and I have to tell you about my business. Networking can be very intimidating. Just go talk to people. And the recipe card will help you talk to people about you without taking up huge amounts of your time and their time. It helps you stay focused. It helps them get a really clear message about what you want them to know about you. Makes sense? Once you get the recipe card in place, you're gonna have to practice. You're gonna have to, maybe with your friends or family, and say, okay, how does this sound? What am I missing? What are things about me that you think people should know? Okay, so that's Recipe for Success. That's Anishinaabe Idol. That's looking at traits and values that are important, recognizing those in others as mentors. I know it's been a long day. I hope you got a little bit out of this afternoon's workshop. I know there's a lot of information in this particular piece, and 45 minutes is hard to really find the best recipe. for each and every one of you. So thank you very much for your time and your participation in the workshops today. I think it's been fantastic.